It's a beautiful day for the start of the school year. The cherry blossoms are in full bloom, and everyone's out enjoying the park. These girls are busy celebrating their high school debut with a selfie, but their phone suddenly starts acting up. It's not just them. All over the park, people are staring at their screens as their smartphones completely die. The screens are just filled with dead static. Sino looks down, realizing her phone is busted, too. Something feels seriously off. Suddenly, the sky isn't so pretty anymore. Huge black tentacles drop from the clouds and snatch a girl right off the ground. Chaos erupts instantly as more of those shadows lash out. People are screaming, and Sino can only stare in total shock. It's a nightmare. Dozens of people are being yanked into the air by these things, disappearing into the red sky. Over a nearby basketball court, the clock hits 4. Life seems normal here for just a few more seconds. A ball sails through the air. Dappo is in his element, holding his own against a group of kids. He's tall, athletic, and clearly loves the game. He drives past them and goes up for a massive dunk. He sticks the landing perfectly. The kids are absolutely floored by the move. Dappo's got a big ego about it, bragging that he was the ace back in middle school. Gunji's not having it. He's just standing there, waiting for the idiot to wrap it up. Dappo's ready to keep the game going, but someone calls his name from the sidelines. Gunji and Sino are standing there looking like disappointed parents. Dappo jumps like he just saw a ghost. He definitely wasn't expecting to get caught. Sino's practically glowing with rage. They were supposed to go to the library to study together, not play with grade schoolers. Dappo doesn't even try to argue. He just bolts. Sino just sighs. Gunji knows the drill and gets ready to run down. Dappo is fast, but for a guy with a book bag, Gunji is right on his heels. He closes the gap in seconds and grabs Dappo by the back of his shirt. He hits the brakes too hard. Dappo's knee lets out a nasty pop, and he goes down hard. He's on the ground, clutching his leg while the kids rush over, terrified. Gunji stands over him, lecturing him about being reckless with his own body. Sino joins in, reminding him that he can't be putting this kind of stress on his injured knee. She's really laying into him. If he keeps this up, he might end up unable to walk, just like back in middle school. Dappo looks pretty pathetic sitting there in the dirt. One of the kids he was playing with walks over. The little girl looks genuinely worried, asking if her big brother is going to be okay. Dappo's heart melts. He pats her on the head and tells her not to worry, blaming it on an old injury. Gunji tells him to stop scaring kids. Dappo can only offer a sheepish apology. He makes a promise to the girl. He'll heal up, and they'll play basketball again soon. Sino tells him to keep that same energy for his actual friends. She goes to check the time, but her phone is being weird. Gunji pulls out to see if it's any better. Their faces go pale. A message just popped up on everyone's screen. Dear mankind. It's a direct address. The message says this game will decide the survival of the entire human race. Sino reads the word out loud, her voice trembling. It sounds like a bad joke, but nobody's laughing. Before they can even process it, the ground starts to rumble. Dappo and Gunji realize something's wrong. An earthquake should be shaking buildings, but they're perfectly still. The sound of something massive cutting through the air echoes from above. They look up and see giant black shards raining down from the clouds. The end of the world just arrived. Dappo can only stare at the sky, his brain barely processing the nightmare unfolding above them. The park is a scene of pure terror. The sky has turned a deep, blood red, and people are scrambling for any kind of cover as the ground continues to shake. Suddenly, a voice echoes directly into their heads. It's a message to all the challengers, telling them they're about to be moved. Everyone looks up as the sky starts to shift, and something massive moves through the red clouds. Gunji and Dappo can only watch in horror as the objects in the sky begin to descend. These aren't shards, they're giant clawed hands made of pure shadow, and they're reaching for the crowd. It's a total massacre. People are screaming for everyone to run, but there's nowhere to hide from the thing coming out of the sky. The shadows strike like lightning, snagging people off the ground before they can even react. It doesn't matter who you are or how fast you run. The sky is literally harvesting humanity. Dappo feels something wrap around his waist. He tries to fight it, but his shadow tentacles have a grip like iron. He's yanked off his feet and dragged into the air. Gunji shouts his name, but it's already too late. Dappo looks down one last time and sees the entire park being pulled up into the void. After a period of total darkness, Dappo slowly opens his eyes. His head is spinning and everything hurts. He pushes himself up from the ground, his mind racing. 1 second he was in the park and now he's in a literal wasteland. Massive black shards pierce the ground like grave markers, and the air feels heavy and dead. He stands up and looks around, trying to find anything familiar, but this place is alien. Ruined buildings are scattered across the desert, looking like they've been here for centuries. Suddenly, someone grabs his shoulder. Dappo nearly jumps out of his skin, spinning around with a shout. It's just Gunji. He looks just as rattled as Dappo, telling him to stay calm and check surroundings. They aren't alone. As they look around, they see hundreds of other people who were snatched from the park. Everyone is just as confused and terrified, wondering what kind of hell they've been dropped into. Suddenly, every single person's phone starts beeping in unison. A message flickers onto the screen, thanking them for waiting and announcing the start of a selection trial. The screen shifts to a mission objective, filled with a cryptic riddle about red lights and crying voices. The rules are simple. Clear the trial, and you get to go home. Fail, and, well, they could probably guess. One guy starts losing it, screaming at the phone to take them back right now. He's not the only one close to a breaking point. Oppo just stares out at the horizon. He has a bad feeling that going home isn't going to be as simple as pressing a button. He notices something shifting in the distance, a dark shape rising from the ground. A massive, pale head emerges from the earth, sporting a permanent, ear-to-ear grin that would make anyone's blood run cold. Oppo and Gunji can only watch, frozen, as a nightmare takes physical form right in front of them. The creature is gargantuan, a distorted humanoid with bulging muscles and those dead, hollow eyes. People start pointing and shouting, but the sheer size of the thing makes running feel pointless. Oppo tries to gauge the distance, hoping they're far enough away to be safe. But then a notification pops up, Ninth Descent, Entanglement. The monster doesn't move at first. It just kneels there, staring at them with that horrific fixed smile. The silence is broken as the realization hits. This isn't just a monster. It's the hunter, and they're the prey. The beast throws its head back and lets out a roar that shakes the very ground beneath their feet. It starts moving with terrifying speed, its massive limbs thudding against the dirt as it closes the distance. A woman in the crowd trips, her legs giving out from pure fear. She looks up and sees the monster looming over her. She screams as the creature reaches down with a hand-sized car and lifts her off the ground. The beast opens its mouth wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth and a bottomless, dark throat. Before anyone can even blink, the monster bites down. A sickening crunch echoes through the air as it rips the poor woman in two. Blood sprays across the sand as the monster swallows its first meal. The survivors can only watch in total, paralyzed horror. Panic has completely taken over. As more people are snatched up, the screams for help are drowned out by the thundering footsteps of the monsters. One poor man is caught in the creature's massive grip. He begs for his life, but those hollow eyes show no mercy, only a sickening, vacant hunger. The survivors scramble in every direction, their minds fracturing as they try to understand how their world turned into a slaughterhouse in seconds. Oppo finds himself cornered as another one of those things looms over him. A voice from the crowd screams a desperate warning. Gunji watches in terror as his friend is targeted. He screams Oppo's name, but he's too far away to help. Someone points toward a nearby structure, shouting for everyone to get inside. Oppo doesn't hesitate, bolting for the entrance with everything he's got. He and Gunji dive through the doorway just as a massive, clawed hand smashes through the glass right behind them. The creature is too fast. Before Oppo can make it all the way in, a hand the size of his torso clamps around his waist and yanks him back. Gunji can only watch in horror as Oppo is pulled for the monster's gaping maw. Oppo closes his eyes, certain that this is the end. Just then, a sharp beep echoes through the air. Oppo's phone flashes a message. This building is a safe zone. The monster's hand suddenly freezes in place. Like it's hitting an invisible wall, the creature's grip slackens and it drops Oppo. He collapses on the floor, gasping for air. Inside the building, the air is still. Oppo trembles on the ground, his heart hammering against his ribs as he wonders why the thing actually let him go. They've taken refuge in what looks like an ordinary supermarket. Gunji checked Oppo for injuries, noting that aside from some bruises and a lot of shock, they're both still in one piece. Gunji pulls out his phone, which is now displaying a mission screen. There's a timer running and a survivor count that's depressingly low. Only 13 people left. He gestures for Oppo to come over and look at the map that just appeared on his screen. The map divides the area into number zones. It confirms that they're currently in Area 5, which is explicitly labeled as a safe zone. The two of them try to make sense of it. It's like they've been dropped into some kind of twisted game where even the monsters have to follow the rules. But any sense of relief is short-lived. A massive, pale face presses against the window, staring at them through the glass with that haunting, permanent grin. They both stumble back, hearts jumping into their throats. The monster is right there, just inches away from them on the other side of the glass. Gunji tries to keep his cool, rationalizing that the creature can't actually enter the building as long as the safe zone rule is active. Oppo can't look away. He finds himself staring directly into one of those massive, dark eyes, feeling sheer weight of the monster's predatory gaze. His blood runs cold when he realizes the monster isn't alone. It's holding something, or rather someone. It's the little girl from the park. Oppo recognizes her immediately, and the sight of her huddled and shaking in that giant hand makes him feel sick. Pure instinct takes over. Oppo turns toward the door, shouting that they have to do something, that they can't just let the monster take her. Gunji lunges forward and grabs him, shouting that it's a trap. The monster is using the girl as bait to lure them out of the safety of the building. Oppo struggles against him, his voice cracking as he watches the girl's terror. He doesn't care about the rules. He just wants to save her. Gunji has to use all his strength to hold him back, pleading with Oppo to understand that going out there is a suicide mission. Outside, the monster slowly lifts the girl higher, as if it's showing off its prize to the two boys behind glass. The girl's face is a mask of pure despair. She reaches out a tiny hand toward the window, her silent plea for help breaking Oppo's heart. The monster opens its mouth wide, the shadows inside looking like a bottomless pit. Oppo lets out a strangled scream, forced to watch the horror unfold. The monster slams the little girl against the glass, crushing her right in front of him. The force is so brutal her head just pops off and rolls right into the store. She stares back at them with lifeless eyes as the blood pools on the floor. Oppo and Gunji can only watch from the other side of the glass, completely paralyzed. The beast presses its massive eye against the window, checking if they're still there. It scrapes its long claws against the surface, taunting them from darkness. Gunji wonders if the thing finally gave up and left. Outside, the monster just picks up another body and starts snacking like it's nothing. Appo snaps, demanding to know why Gunji didn't let him go out and save her. He screams that he could have done something, but Gunji tells him to wake up. Gunji yells that the normal humans stand zero chance against a monster like that. Appo goes quiet, and Gunji suggests they just sit for a minute to clear their heads. Gunji brings over a cloth to cover what's left of the girl on the floor. He remembers a voice coming from the phone before the attack, and checks the screen. A mission pops up, claiming they can return to their original world if they clear it. It sounds insane, but Gunji thinks there might be some truth to it. Appo doesn't even care where they are. He just wants payback for what happened. Appo vows to never forgive whoever is behind this as Gunji starts reading the mission details. The riddle mentions a red light in a haven that points to a clue. The phone screen glows with a cryptic message. I'm always watching you. Appo asks what the hell any of that is supposed to mean. Gunji notices there are 6 blank spaces at the bottom for an answer. He figures haven, I mean a place to rest like where they are now. The map confirms it. Their building is explicitly labeled as a safe zone. Appo realizes finding the red light is their only way forward. He starts searching the aisles, thinking the light might be something as simple as a match or a lighter. Gunji suggests they might need to think a bit more outside the box. He keeps dwelling on the part about the light having a crying voice. Appo finds a blowtorch and thinks its firepower might be useful. Gunji shuts him down immediately, pointing out that the flame is blue, not red. He tells Appo to just grab anything that produces light so they can test it. Appo heads off in the back to keep looking. It's so dark he can barely see his hand in front of his face, so he looks for a switch. He spots a small red dot glowing on the wall near the ceiling. Gunji has managed to fill a whole basket with random lights. Appo calls him over, pointing out the red light he found. They find themselves standing right in front of fire alarm. Gunji admits it definitely stands out in the dark. He connects the crying voice to the sound the alarm makes. Appo thinks it's worth a shot if it helps him find a clue. But Gunji is worried about the warning that the light's voice brings despair. Appo reaches for the button, but Gunji tells him to wait and think it through first. A loud beep echoes through the store, and Appo has to cover his ears. Gunji apologizes. He already pressed the button. Gunji's phone buzzes with a notification. It confirms that Area 3's lights have cried out, meaning they got the answer right. On the screen, the letter S fills into one of the blank spaces in a mission answer. Gunji calculates that they just need to press the remaining alarms to finish this. A sudden noise startles Appo. Something new pops up on their screens, an invitation to a collective voice chat for all participants. Gunji asks if they should join the call, as Appo tries to greet whoever else is on the line. Someone on the other end is screaming, begging everyone in a building to activate their fire alarms immediately. Gunji realizes that every activated alarm fills a blank, and they're close to clearing the whole mission. Appo winces as the sound of alarms from other areas starts blaring through the phone, sounding like they're right next to them. 2 more letters, A and S, appear in mission answer. They only have 3 left to go. Suddenly, the screaming on the call gets worse, followed by the sound of something heavy breaking in. Terrible tearing and crunching sounds fill the room. Appo stands frozen as he hears people begging for their lives. The phone screen flashes an error message, and the audio cuts out entirely. Gunji stares at the no-signal message, realizing the voice chat room has just been forcibly ended. The silence in the supermarket is deafening after those horrific sounds. Appo is shaking, asking what the hell just happened to people on the other side. He can still hear the echoes of the screaming and those sickening, crunching noises in his head. The phone just says the chat has ended, leaving him in the dark about what went wrong. Appo frantically tries calling back, but a recording tells him the number no longer exists. Gunji points out the map. There's no one left in the buildings where the alarms were just triggered. The survivors have simply vanished from the list, and Gunji looks like he's starting to piece together the grim reality. Appo can't take it anymore and bolts toward the stairs, with Gunji shouting for him to wait. He yells back that he's going up to see what's happening outside with his own eyes. He bursts through a door and finds himself on a roof terrace overlooking the city. Appo walks slowly toward the railing, the wind whipping past him in the eerie silence. He looks down and sees the street below filled with those black, jagged shards. Across the way, he spots a monster crawling right onto the side of the building. Appo is stunned. He thought the monsters were supposed to be locked out of the safe zones. A new announcement flashes on his phone. Areas 2, 3, and 4 have officially lost their safe zone status. The message warns that when the light cries out, despair follows. Gunji realizes they've been played. They watch in horror as a monster inside a building starts tearing through the people there. Gunji explains the trap. Clearing mission goal actively removes the building's protection. Appo thought they'd all be safe if they clear it together, but the game is much crueler than that. Gunji pulls up the map again, showing the distribution of remaining players. Area 1 is completely empty, while Area 6 still has a few people hiding inside. The challenge is the button in Area 1 has to be pressed too, or they can't leave this world. Appo clenches his fist, thinking about the impossible task of reaching Area 1 himself. Gunji doesn't think it's possible, but Appo yells that it's exactly what the game wants them to do. Gunji explains that anyone who presses their button is basically turning their own building into a death trap. He doubts the people in Area 6 would ever trust him enough to sacrifice their safety. In this world, nobody wants to risk their own life for someone else, and Gunji can't blame them. Appo looks out at the ruins, his expression hardening as he weighs his next move. Gunji stands by the railing, pointing out that only one person is actually needed to press that final button. Appo argues that if they split up and go to Area 1 and Area 6 themselves, they can trigger the alarms at the same time and clear the mission. Gunji looks at him skeptically, reminding Appo that he already explained why it's a suicide mission. Gunji admits he briefly considered the idea, but the risks are just too high to ignore. He points at Dappo's injured knee, telling him there's no way he could outrun one of those monsters in his current condition. The thought of Dappo getting caught halfway is something Gunji doesn't even want to say out loud. Gunji sighs in frustration, covering his eyes as the weight of their situation sinks in. Appo isn't backing down. He says they'll die eventually if they just stay here, and he'd rather die fighting than waiting in fear. He stands firm, declaring that he wants to go back to their own world, even if the attempt kills him. Appo shouts with determination, telling Gunji that this mission belongs to the two of them alone. Gunji finally gives in, swearing under his breath as he agrees to follow Dappo's reckless plan. Gunji tells Dappo to head for Area 1 since it's the closest, while he goes to check out the situation in Area 6. Appo looks out at the target building in the distance, silhouetted against the dark, jagged sky. The building gives him a terrible feeling, but he doesn't have time to hesitate. Gunji tells him it's time to move. Dappo confirms he's ready and starts heading down the stairs to get into position. Gunji heads for the alarm while Dappo takes a final moment to look at the little girl's ribbon, determined to bring apart her home. Appo clutches the ribbon and starts to run, looking back at Gunji one last time. He shouts a promise to himself and to Gunji. He's going to come back alive. Gunji stands by the alarm, finger poised, warning Dappo that the monsters will kill him the second they spot him. He starts to count down, 3, 2, 1, and then slams his hand down on the fire alarm button. The alarm begins to blare, and Dappo sprints out of the building and into the dangerous wasteland. He pushes himself, thinking he can reach the next building in under 5 minutes if he just keeps running. He's terrified that the monster from earlier is still around, but he tries to force the fear out of his mind. Dappo clenches his jaw and focuses on building ahead, telling himself to stay calm and keep his head. He starts to feel a flicker of hope, thinking he might actually make it after all. Suddenly, a massive, horrifying face appears right next to him, letting out a bone-chilling roar. The monster is colossal, looming over Dappo as he tries to scramble away through the ruins. Dappo looks back in pure terror as a giant hand reaches out for him. The creature snatches him up before he can react, and Dappo lets out a pained cry as he's lifted off the ground. Dappo's in a bad way, getting crushed by those massive hands. He's struggling to breathe, looking straight into the eyes of the thing about to eat him. The monster opens its mouth wide, ready to finish the job. It's squeezing the life out of him, and he can't even move. But then, a loud snap echoes out as the monster's arm just breaks. Dappo falls to the ground as the creature shrieks in pain, its limb hanging like a wet rag. The whole monster starts to dissolve into a pile of black sludge right in front of him. He watches it melt, trying to figure out what just happened. In seconds, there's nothing left but a smoking skeleton. Dappo's on the ground, gasping for air, just glad to still be alive. He looks over the snapped arm, wondering if the physics of this place are just broken. He finally stands up, staring at the weird residue left behind. He realizes he can't just hang around in the open and needs to move. He starts a dead sprint toward the nearest building for some cover. He keeps pushing, his eyes locked on the structure ahead. He stops cold when he finally gets a good look at the building. The whole place is upside down, just hovering there like it's no big deal. There aren't any doors at ground level, which is a bit of a problem. He checks the walls, desperately looking for some way to get inside. But a noise from behind makes him spin around. A whole pack of those grinning monsters is crawling out of the shadows. He's completely surrounded with nowhere left to run. One of them lunges at him, its face just inches away. In that split second, his mind flashes back to his days on the basketball court. He remembers the footwork and the way he'd weave through defenders. Using those same moves, he dodges the monsters and breaks through the circle. He keeps running, knowing he's got to find a way into that building now. He thinks back to all those times he made a high jump for the hoop. He takes a massive leap, launching himself toward the building's ledge. He barely catches the edge, fingers digging into the concrete. He hangs there for a moment, catching his breath while the monsters snap at his feet. He swings his legs and kicks his way right through one of the windows. He rolls onto the floor, finally safe inside the building. As he's getting his bearings, his phone starts ringing with a voice call. He picks up and is relieved to hear Gunji on the other side. Gunji's also made it into another area, looking surprisingly calm about the whole thing. Gunji mentions that the people in his area actually tried to barricade him out. He tells Dappo a monster was chasing him too, so he had to act fast. He didn't have time for a chat, so he just busted his way through the door. Gunji's got some blood on his face, but he says it's nothing too bad. Dappo asks if he's doing alright on his end. Gunji says he's found a fire alarm and is ready to go, so Dappo starts looking for his. Dappo's still navigating this upside-down nightmare, but he can barely tell which way is which. To make things worse, his old knee injury is starting to flare up. He pushes through it, sprinting down the hallway since he knows they're close to the end. He finally spots the fire alarm and lets out a sigh of relief. He quickly gets on the phone with Gunji, making sure they're both ready to hit it at the same time. On the other end, Gunji confirms he's at his post. It's go time. They both slam their hands onto the alarms, triggering the signal perfectly. The building creaks as the alarms scream out, signaling that Area 1 and Area 6 are finally active. But instead of a mission-cleared message, Gunji's phone just displays a single word, Master. Appo gets the same message and stares at it, completely confused. He thought they were finally done with this crap. And a new message pops up, and it's bad. The buildings are no longer safe zones, and something called despair is coming. Both guys can only stare at their screens in shock as the rules of the game change in an instant. Before Dappo can even process the threat, a monster smashes through the wall right next to him. He barely has time to scream as the reality of the situation hits him. The building is definitely not safe anymore, and the grinning freaks are already inside. He manages to scramble out of the way just as the creature jumps at him. Over in Area 6, things are looking just as grim for Gunji. He's frantically checking his phone, wondering why the hell the mission didn't clear after they did exactly what they were told. The other survivors in the room start to panic, realizing their supposed safe zone has turned into a death trap. They turn on Gunji, blaming him for dragging them into this mess and demanding he do something. He doesn't have time to argue with them and immediately turns to run. He grabs a heavy board, planning to block the path and give everyone a chance to hide. He tells the group to get out of sight while he tries to rebuild the barricade. As he works, his thoughts drift back to Dappo, worrying that his friend's bad and he is going to get him killed. He slams the last piece of the barricade into place, hoping it's enough to hold monsters back for now. He stares at the barrier, praying this move will buy them some time. Back at Area 1, the massive black shards are still looming over the building like a bad omen. Dappo is back on the run, clutching his side and wondering what the hell went wrong with their plan. He knows he can't outrun them forever and desperately looks for a place to hide. He sprints down a dark corridor, his heart hammering against his ribs. He ducks into a nearby room, hoping the shadows will keep him hidden for a bit. But he isn't alone. The monsters are already crawling through the walls, following him into the dark. He looks around the room, realizing he's cornered with nowhere left to go. He collapses against the wall, his energy completely spent and his mind racing for a solution. He takes a second to check the hallway, relieved to find it quiet for the moment. He looks back at the master riddle on his phone, frustration boiling over as he tries to make sense of it. He starts thinking it might be a hint instead of just a word, especially that weird line about being watched. He wonders if he's supposed to literally write the word out somewhere to clear the mission. He starts scratching the word master into the floor, but his phone immediately buzzes with an incorrect alert. He panics, wondering if he just triggered something even worse by guessing wrong. He looks down at the word he scratched, racking his brain for what he could have missed. Every time he tries to write it, the phone just keeps flashing that red, incorrect message. He stares at the line, "I'm always watching you" again, wondering if the answer is hidden in the way he's being observed. Appo sits huddled in the shadows, realizing that finding the answer to the riddle is his only way out of this hell. His blood runs cold as a massive, grinning eye appears in the window, watching him from the darkness outside. The creature shatters the glass and lunges inside, forcing Dappo to scramble backward to avoid being crushed. He hits the floor hard, gasping for breath as the monster's claws steer through the room just inches from his face. He tries to force himself up, but his injured knee buckles, leaving him trapped as the beast closes in. In a moment of clarity, he remembers that this entire building is inverted, and the solution must be right in front of him. He looks at the letters he scratched earlier, realizing the word master on his phone would look completely different if viewed from above. If the building itself is upside down, then the word must be flipped to be read correctly by someone watching from the top. A sudden impact knocks the wind out of him, but he keeps his eyes fixed on the wall, the answer finally clear in his mind. He shouts at the unseen entity watching his every move, challenging whoever is behind this twisted game. He forces himself to ignore the monster's growls, focusing every last bit of strength on one final act. He reaches for the wall and begins to write, yelling for the master to look at the new answer he's providing. He carved the word waster into the surface, the inverted form of master, just as the creature's hand reaches out to grab him. The beast stops dead in its tracks, its terrifying face contorting as the physics of the trial begin to unravel. Suddenly, a loud chime rings out from his phone, declaring the mission cleared and the trial finally over. The monster's arm simply snaps off and its body begins to disintegrate as the simulation collapses around them. In his own area, Gunji stares at his phone in confusion as he receives a message saying they'll be picked up momentarily. Dappo slumps against the wall, letting out a ragged breath of relief now that the immediate danger has passed. He looks at the word he wrote, vaguely remembering seeing the term waster back at school, though the meaning still escapes him. A tall, flamboyant man with long white hair and a theatrical grin, a dangerous new antagonist named Jack, suddenly steps from the shadows. Jack mocks his performance and promises they'll meet again as shadowy tentacles surge from the floor to seize Dappo. "I'll be waiting here in Gehenna," the mysterious man says before the shadows swallow everything in sight. Dappo is pulled through a swirling void of light and darkness, his senses overwhelmed as he's transported away. He opens his eyes to a familiar city skyline, but still pierced by those ominous black shards hanging in the red sky. He collapses on the grass of the park, gasping for air as he realizes he's finally back and finds Gunji lying nearby. Tino's eyes light up as she finds Dappo and Gunji safe. They're back in park, but it's a far cry from the peaceful day they left behind. Dappo tries to shake off the feeling that he's still trapped in a nightmare. He touches his head, suddenly noticing a strange black ribbon tied around his wrist. Sino's worried about their injuries, but a text box pops up to congratulate them for clearing the first trial. A mysterious voice calls them superior members of humanity and says they've been returned home as promised. Just as they start to relax, Sino's phone starts emitting that same unsettling, distorted sound. Dappo snaps, yelling at the phone to reveal who's really pulling the strings. The voice doesn't flinch, coldly informing them that what they just survived was only the tutorial. Glass shards hang ominously over the city, and the voice warns that the world is on the brink of collapse. In the streets, people are panicking and filming the bizarre sightings the voice calls salvation. Gunji and the others look on in horror as the voice claims God is judging humanity's worth. The voice declares it's time to atone for their sins, with the ribbon on Dappo's wrist serving as a grim reminder. Dappo stares at the screen, sweat pouring down as the scale of disaster finally sinks in. A 24-hour countdown begins, marking the time they have left before things get even worse. The message is clear. The real game is about to begin. Dappo wakes up to the sound of emergency sirens blaring through the city. He's in a bedroom at Gunji's house, trying to remember how the hell they got here. He scrambles out of bed and throws open the curtains. One look at the sky confirms it wasn't a dream. The black shards are still there. Sino opens the door, looking relieved to see him finally awake. He's shocked to find out he's been out cold for 12 hours. She leads him downstairs, telling him that everyone else is already waiting. Eva, Gunji's mom, greets him with a kind smile, checking to see if he's feeling any better. Dappo feels bad for sleeping through the day and overstaying his welcome. Eva tells him not to worry about it and offers to make him some food. Gunji is sitting on the couch, already focused. He tells Dappo to get changed as soon as possible. He holds up his phone, reminding him of the 24-hour warning they received. It's been nearly a full day since they got back, meaning their time is almost up. Gunji tells him he left some fresh clothes on the bed. Dappo stares at the empty spot on the couch, haunted by the memory of the black hands. As he buttons his shirt, he can't help but worry about what will happen next time they're taken. He goes back downstairs to find Gunji and Sino glued to the news broadcast. Sino points out how strange it is that their bodies and clothes were completely healed when they returned. He even tries to keep the mood light by bringing out some sandwiches. Gunji cuts through the small talk, telling Dappo to pay attention to the global reports. The news anchor confirms that the red sky hasn't cleared and the chaos is spreading. Footage shows those black hands literally plucking people and entire buildings from the city. In Japan alone, over 1 million people are missing, and the country is in a state of emergency. Dappo is speechless. 1 million people gone in just one day. Sino checks her tablet, saying the internet is full of even more terrifying reports from around the world. Gunji looks completely drained, noting that the whole world is in a state of collapse. Dappo keeps his eyes glued to the clock. It's nearly 5:30, the exact time the next trial is supposed to kick off. The basement is thick with tension. Sino wonders aloud if they're really about to be dragged back into that nightmare. Dappo can't shake the feeling of hopelessness from the first trial. He knows they only made it out because of pure luck. Gunji tries to keep everyone from spiraling, telling Dappo to stay calm while the world outside burns. He points out that if they get snatched again, it's not just their problem anymore. They'll be right back in the line of fire. Gunji's dad walks in, sounding oddly calm as he says things seem to have settled down on his end. Gunji isn't taking any chances. He decides they're going to barricade themselves in the house's basement. They head down the narrow stairs, hoping a few layers of concrete will be enough to shield them from whatever's coming. Sino is surprised by how large the space is, but Eva explains they mostly just use it for storage. Eva tries to reassure the group, suggesting they hunker down for the night since they still have power. She rests a comforting hand on Dappo's shoulder, trying to steady his nerves. With a quick wink, she promises that the adults will protect them, no matter what. Dappo feels bad for being such a wreck, but Eva jokes that Gunji's dad was acting even more like a wimp yesterday. Gunji is clearly embarrassed, telling his mom to keep those stories to herself as Dappo manages a small smile. But the peace is short-lived when their phones start buzzing with a message meant for all challengers. The text is bone-chilling. The next trial is starting right now, and retrieval is imminent. Suddenly, the entire room begins to shake violently, as if the house is being torn apart. Gunji screams for everyone to hit the floor before the vibrations knock them off their feet. A high-pitched, deafening screech fills the basement, leaving Dappo clutching his head in pain. Gunji is right there with him, letting out a gut-wrenching scream as the noise becomes unbearable. The sheer force of the shaking throws Dappo hard against the concrete floor. He gasps for air as the vibration finally dies down, praying that the worst is over. Dust and debris rain from the ceiling as Gunji frantically checks to see if everyone's okay. But then the ceiling buckles, and those terrifying black hands erupt through the rubble. They slither down into the basement like massive, oily serpents. One of the hands lunges straight for Dappo, its fingers spread wide and ready to grab. Dappo can only stare in mute horror as the shadow closes in on him. Gunji doesn't hesitate, swinging a shovel with everything he's got to bash the hand away. He yelled at Dappo to snap out of it and move before he gets caught. Dappo rolls to the side, just as another hand slams in the ground where he was just lying. He scrambles to his feet, but more shadows are already emerging from the darkness. He reaches out blindly, looking for any way out of his death trap. Sino screams as a tentacle lashes out, barely missing her. She watches in terror as Gunji keeps fighting, desperate to protect the group. A black hand clamps down on his shovel, its grip so powerful that Gunji can't pull free. Dappo realizes the horrible truth. These things aren't just attacking randomly. They're specifically coming for him and Gunji. Gunji's dad yells for his son to run as the basement begins to crumble. He shoves Gunji out of harm's way, telling him to just save himself while he still can. Eva stands tall between Gunji and shadows, refusing to let them take her son without a fight. Dappo looks toward the exit, but the stairs are completely buried under rubble. They're trapped. A cold, heavy hand suddenly clamps down on Dappo's shoulder from behind. He's yanked backward, a wave of despair washing over him as he realizes it's finally over. Sino yells at the shadowy hands to stop, her voice trembling but determined as she grabs onto Dappo to pull him back. Dappo is terrified that if Sino keeps this up, the hand will target her too, but she refuses to listen. She screams that she won't let them just take him away to be killed, no matter what. Dappo watches in horror as one of the massive black tentacles whips around, catching Sino completely off guard. The force of the blow sends her reeling, blood spraying from the impact on her arm. Dappo screams for her to get away, but his heart sinks as he sees more hands rising from the floor to surround him. Sino collapses to the ground, her face twisted in pain as she calls out his name one last time. Dappo loses it, screaming at the shadows to leave her alone and let him go. But the hands are relentless, hoisting him up and dragging him into the air as Sino watches helplessly from below. As he's pulled away, Dappo manages to toss his tablet toward her, desperate to leave something behind. A shadowy hand clamps over his mouth, muffling his final apology as he disappears into the darkness. He throws a black ribbon toward the wounded girl, begging her to keep it safe for the owner's family. Sino can only watch with tear-filled eyes as Dappo is swallowed by the shadows, leaving her alone in the wreckage. The ribbon flutters to the ground, a final, silent promise from Dappo that he will find a way back. Dappo clenches his teeth as the darkness takes hold, swearing to himself that this isn't the end. Back in the basement, Gunji and Eva can only scream Dappo's name into the void left behind. Dappo opens his eyes and finds himself on a strange, paved street, gasping for breath as he tries to orient himself. He realizes with a sinking feeling that he's been brought back to another trial, far away from home. The sky above is filled with the same ominous black shards, but the architecture around him is completely different this time. He looks around at the European-style buildings, realizing this isn't the same place they were taken to before. The presence of the black rocks confirms his fears. He's back in the game, and the rules have clearly changed. He senses someone behind him and turns to see a tall, imposing figure draped in a long white coat. The man notes Dappo's language and appearance, correctly guessing that he's Japanese. The stranger scoffs at Dappo's shocked expression, calling it a boring reaction. The man introduces himself as Jack, offering a chilling welcome to the group he calls his atoners. Jack introduces himself with a flourish, welcoming survivors as his atoners. Shundo, Dappo, and Akikawa Gunji look on, completely lost as they process the situation. Dappo stares at the flamboyant man, wondering who the hell he is and why he's using such a strange title. A girl in the crowd asks what's happening and what those creepy black hands were earlier. The crowd starts losing it, and one guy steps forward to scream at Jack for being high and mighty. Jack doesn't even move. He just spikes the guy through the chest with a blast of black energy. Jack calmly calls the execution a note of warning. The guy's body is left in a bloody heap on the stones as Jack warns that anyone else who talks will end up the same way. Silence falls over the terrified group as Jack announces it's finally time to reveal the trial. The game is simple, hide and seek. The humans are the ones hiding, and they're being hunted by monsters. It's basically a 50-on-50 battle for survival. Dappo realizes the whole thing is completely rigged against them. Jack catches their expressions and smirks, knowing they're doing the math on their survival. He explains that monsters will kill them on sight, but the humans are also free to try and kill the monsters back. Victory goes to whoever has more members standing at the end, and if the humans lose, Jack promises to kill them all himself. A girl nervously asks if they can actually defeat monsters, and Jack decides to give them a little special gift to help. He tells everyone to pull out those square machines they all have, their smartphones. Dappo looks at his phone as it registers him for the trial. The screen lights up with a message confirming he's now officially an atoner. He follows the instructions and taps the screen. A black choker suddenly snaps onto Dappo's neck out of thin air. He grabs his throat, eyes wide in shock as he tries to figure out what just happened. Gunji got tagged with 1 too, but Jack tells them to relax. It's just proof they're registered. Once they're authenticated, he tells them to check their screens again. Dappo's phone now shows a full interface with a map, status, and something called skill. Jack tells them to focus on that skill section for now. He explains that they can allocate points to different skills for various benefits. There are a bunch of options to choose from, but they only have a few points to start with. Jack holds up a finger, telling them to think of these first 5 points as a little present from him. Dappo's phone beeps, showing he's got 5 points ready to spend. He looked at the weapon skill, where the prompt asks him to select an item. Jack points out that if they have a weapon, it might actually have shot at fighting back. He gives them 5 minutes to prepare before the trial begins. Jack flashes one last creepy smile and wishes them good luck. Then, he just vanishes in a thin air, leaving everyone in panic. Apple looked at his screen, unsure if he should really trust the guy and pick a weapon. Suddenly, the unknown blonde warrior nearby manifests a massive, jagged black sword out of nowhere. She takes a swing, her blade cutting through the air toward Dappo and Gunji. She inspects her new blade, wondering if it's actually as fragile as it looks. With a chilling smile, she decides there's only one way to find out, by testing it on them. Dappo barely has time to react as the giant sword comes crashing down his head. Dappo is completely cornered as the giant blade comes swinging at his head. He instinctively blocks the strike with a black spear that manifests in his hands, leaving Gunji and the others in shock. The unknown blonde warrior is actually surprised to see he's already managed to summon a weapon of his own. A system notification confirms that his weapon skill has been automatically activated through thought alone. The girl stares him down with those reptilian eyes, seemingly impressed that he isn't as helpless as he looks. Dappo looks at the jagged black spear in his hands, unable to believe that it actually worked. He screams at her, demanding to know what she was thinking by attacking him out of nowhere. He's shaking with rage, realizing that if he hadn't reacted, she really would have killed him right then and there. The girl just shrugs off, asking if he plans to ask the monsters for permission to kill them too. She tells him that common sense is a death sentence in a place like this. With a casual wave, she walks away, leaving Gunji to check if Dappo is actually okay. Dappo is left reeling, wondering if that girl is even human after trying to murder him with such a straight face. Gunji points out that the trial starts in only 1 minute, and suggests they exchange contact information. Dappo is confused by the idea, but Gunji shows in the dedicated section on the smartphone screen. It looks like they've got way more features now, including a direct line of communication with other participants. Gunji pulls up the connection menu on his phone to register his number. He quickly sets up so Dappo can reach him if they get separated in the chaos. He makes sure Dappo is focused on plan, knowing time is running out. The countdown clock in a ruined city starts ticking away. Big Ben looms over the landscape as the final seconds bleed out. The system announces the start of the trial, warning everyone that demons will begin appearing in 60 seconds. Panic erupts as people scatter, and Dappo wonders where the hell they're supposed to hide. Gunji points toward the nearby buildings, telling him they need to get inside immediately. As they run, a thick, unnatural fog begins to roll through the streets, swallowing everything in sight. Gunji spots a house and urges Dappo to hurry inside before they're caught out in the open. The front door is jammed tight, so Dappo decides to take a risk and try the window instead. He manages to slide it open, and they scramble into what looks like a kitchen, hoping for some cover. Suddenly, a girl appears at the window, desperate and begging for them to let her in before it's too late. Dappo doesn't hesitate. He reaches out and pulls her up into the safety of the room. The 60-second grace period officially ends, and the system announces that the demons are now on the move. Dappo peers out in the fog, but it's so thick he can barely see his own hand. A massive crash echoes through the alleyway, shaking the ground beneath them. He freezes, wondering if something just fell right out of the sky. He checks with Gunji to see if he heard it too, his heart racing as they wait in the dark. In her panic, the girl that just rescued trips over a bucket, sending it clattering across the floor. She immediately starts apologizing, but in a game of hide-and-seek, sound is the last thing they want to make. Dappo tells her to just stay calm and keep quiet so they don't give away their position. It's too late. A massive fist smashes through the brick wall with the force of a wrecking ball. Dust and debris fly everywhere as a horrifyingly large arm reaches into the room. A massive, sightless demon crawls through the hole it just made, filling the room with its grotesque presence. It has a gaping mouth and no eyes, twitching as it searches for the source of the noise. Before anyone can move, the monster lunges forward and grabs the terrified girl, its massive hands pinning her down. The girl lets out a final, desperate plea for help as the demon's head snaps back, its mouth opening wide in a terrifying screech. Dappo watches in horror from the side, his breath hitching as he realizes just how fast and lethal these creatures truly are. A massive, pale hand smashes right through the brick wall. Chundo Dappo stares in horror as a lanky, skinless monster looms over him. The creature lets out a silent, gaping roar, its entire face dominated by a massive mouth. It steps fully into the kitchen, its sightless head twitching. Akikawa Gunji pulls Dappo down, whispering that they need to move immediately. Dappo holds his breath, paralyzed as the monster looms just inches away. Gunji holds up his phone with a message. Do you think you can open the window without making any noise? The monster is still there, its elongated arm brushing against the kitchen furniture. Dappo slowly reaches the window latch, his hands trembling. Gunji grabs a heavy piece of wood from a basket. He hurls the wood out the open window into the alley below. The sound of wood hitting the ground catches the monster's attention instantly. With a screech, the demon leaps through the hole in the wall, following the noise. The two boys huddle on the floor, listening to the creature's heavy footsteps fade away. Gunji quickly slides the window shut, finally letting our breath. They stand amidst the wreckage of the kitchen, surrounded by broken porcelain and debris. On the floor lies the remains of the girl who did stay quiet. Gunji warns that while this room is safer now, they have to keep their voices down. Dappo realizes the monster is purely sound sensitive. Gunji points out that even though they were right there, it couldn't find him until there was noise. He recalls how the monster focused entirely on the woman who screamed. Gunji explains that the wood he threw acted as a perfect decoy. Dappo shudders, thinking about what would have happened if he'd spoken even once. He looks down at his weapon, a black spear, wondering if he's even capable of using it. The rules of this hide-and-seek trial are simple: survive demons. Dappo sees the monsters for what they are, creatures they've never encountered before. Gunji hands him a sturdy black shoe. He found a pair of shoes that might fit, saying anything is better than being barefoot. Dappo laces them up, trying to force himself not to let fear take over. He stands up, telling Gunji he's ready to keep moving. Suddenly, a loud thud echoes from the ceiling. The entire building shakes, and a shower of dust falls on them. The sound of heavy dragging comes from right above their heads. They look up, realizing another one of those things is on the floor above. Gunji gestures for them to stay perfectly still and wait for it to pass. Without warning, Dappo's phone starts blaring a loud alarm. Gunji stares in disbelief as the beeping cuts through the silence. Dappo panics, frantically trying to shut the phone off, but won't stop. The ceiling above them begins to buckle and crack. The monster crashes through the floorboards in a cloud of debris. Dappo is knocked back by the impact, calling out for his friend. He looks over and sees Gunji lying motionless on the ground, his glasses shattered nearby. The unknown blonde warrior watches from the shadows, her face already spattered with blood. Shundo Dappo desperately reaches for Gunji, but his friend is completely unresponsive. The monster roars, its vertical mouth splitting open as it prepares to strike from the ruins. Dappo realizes he has to move. He screams at the top of his lungs to draw the beast away. The demon's head snaps toward the sound, its blind face twitching as it zeroes in on the noise. Dappo stands firm, baiting the creature and shouting that he's the only one it should be hunting. He bolts into the foggy ruins, leading the monster on a desperate chase through streets. He keeps yelling every few steps, making sure the thing stays focused on him and not the kitchen where Gunji lies. The monster lunges through the fog, its claws scraping the pavement just inches behind him. Dappo's mind is a mess of fear and worry for his friend, but he knows he can't stop now. He realizes that if he doesn't draw it far enough away, Gunji is as good as dead meat. Gritting his teeth, he steels his resolve, knowing he has to be the target. He sprints through the debris-strewn alleyways, keeping the creature's attention firmly on himself. One slip up here means he's finished, and he can feel the creature's breath on his neck. He looks back, seeing the demon's silhouette, and wonders why it hasn't caught up to him yet. He keeps shouting, though he's starting to feel the strain of this high-stakes game. If he could just hide in an alley and lure them away with more sound, he might make out safe. He ducks into an alleyway, but quickly realizes he's walked into a dead end. He rounds a corner and stops dead. Another monster is waiting right in front of him. The creature swings a massive arm, nearly catching him as he stumbles back in a panic. Dappo realizes in horror that he's being hunted by two of them at once. He's trapped between the two demons, with no escape in sight. He falls back against a wall, shielding himself as they both close in for the kill. Suddenly, a flash of black steel cuts through the air, and the unknown blonde warrior intervenes. With a massive, jagged sword, she carves through the fog and the monsters with effortless power. She slaughters both creatures in a single, fluid motion, blood spraying across the bricks. She stands over the remains, looking completely unfazed by the carnage she just caused. She pulls out her smartphone, the screen glowing in the dim light of the alley. She drops the device, letting it clatter to the ground where it starts to beep loudly. The sound acts as a lure, ensuring any other monsters stay far away from them for a moment. She turns her gaze toward Dappo, a small, confident smirk on her face. She walks toward him, noting that he's playing way too defensively despite having a strong weapon. To her, his fear is pathetic, and she makes that clear as she looms over him. The demons are nothing more than a nuisance as she turns her back on the corpses. She tells him to stop playing around and actually use the power he's manifested. Dappo is in total shock, unable to believe how easily she dispatched the things that nearly killed him. He looks at the carnage, realizing just how massive the gap between them really is. She notices his weapon is out and asks if he's finally found the will to fight. Dappo realizes he's been holding his black spear without even thinking about it. She points down the street to where another demon is lurking in shadows. She grabs him by the back of his shirt, dragging him forward toward the new threat. She tells him it's his turn to fight, and he isn't getting out of this without getting his hands dirty. Shundo Dappo's eyes widen in absolute disbelief, his face slick with cold sweat as the crushing reality of the situation finally sets in. He lets out a strangled cry of shock, his mind reeling at the impossible life-or-death challenge he's just been forced to face.